For spring summer 16, we've seen a massive trend moving away from braids and actually having a rope texture, which I'm going to show you how to do. But to prep Amanda's hair, first of all, I'm just going to smooth the hair through a little bit. To get a really good blow dry in your hair, take out 80% of the water before you even concentrate on blow drying your hair smooth. So with the nozzle on your hairdryer, the intensity of the heat will be gained and it will help you to smooth the hair through, just to prep it for the rope texture on Amanda's hair. I'm going to start off by putting a high ponytail into Amanda's hair. Use a little bit of hairspray through the front hair and then a little bit of hairspray onto my brush. Okay, so you've got your hair in the high ponytail. You could secure this with an invisible band, a clear band, or a band that's the same colour as your hair. In this case, I'm going to use a piece of elastic. This is a little trick of the trade. And the reason why we use this is because it becomes very, very tight, and then just cut. Okay, so once the hair split into two, I'm going to start twisting the hair into the middle. It's a brilliant alternative to a braid. So as you twist, wrap the hair over one another. Keep it as tight as you can. We saw a lot of this on the runway, and you see a lot of this in the magazines at the moment. It's a really massive trend because the hair does want to undo itself. So if you just put some pins or some Kirby grips down the length of the hair, it will just help to not unwind on itself. Instead of the elastic, I'm just going to do something that you would do at home. Just use these very tight, very small bands, and then we can start to loosen off the whole shape, just to give it that really edgy kind of feeling to the look. So from Amanda's first look, which was this dishevelled rope, we're going to do another two looks to work with this longer length of hair. The first of being a knotted look. I'm going to cut off the elastic because that was knotted on it. You can't take it out, it's so tight. Just remove any pins that are left in the hair and then have a look at the texture that's naturally happened from the rope. Just going to add a little bit more texture into the hair using a sea salt spray. Just spray it from a distance. You don't want to really wet the hair. We're going to use a diffuser on the hairdryer just to set in this texture. So this has just come out of the high ponytail. If your hair was smoother, then you could use, say, a tonguing technique or anything to make this dishevelled texture. I'm going to start to pin the hair up now I've got this really loose texture in the hair. You can either use a D-pin, or it'd be much easier if you used very traditional Kirby grip. Don't be worried if you see the grips in the hair. I think it just adds to it. So from the texture, I'm going to start to knot the hair up into something that's completely off the face. Still, still loose, still has this summer feeling to it. So kind of something that's kind of dishevelled elegance, really. And just make sure that you look constantly to see how the shape's evolving. So just twist it round your finger, leave the tail out. So when you're doing this at home, just make sure you're constantly looking in the mirror. When you come to the back, make sure you're lifting the hair as you twist it, because you want it to be lifted and you want it to be quite tight in the neck, because it'll be much more elegant. So these shapes and these knots need to be much tighter. When you put the pin in, put it in one way and then turn it back on itself. and it'll just grip the hair. And finally at the bottom, I'm just going to lift this one a little bit higher, just to keep that much tighter in at the nape. So this will be different every time you do it, but I think that's the fun of it. So when you've got the knots placed where you want them, I'm just going to go through now and loosen it off a little bit in places. So there you have it. Build a texture into the hair, create the texture with some sea salt, diffuse the hair, leave the texture very raw, and then just wrap the hair up. If the pins are showing, it doesn't matter, and it's a bit of fun for summer. On our final look on Amanda, we're going to use the benefit of having these knots in the hair from our previous look. If you didn't have the knots in your hair already, then just twist your hair up into these small knots all over the head. And then I'm going to add some of a setting lotion, a very light setting lotion over the top of the knots. And this is kind of a very quick way to achieve a texture that we've seen on the runways for Spring Summer 16. I'm going to use a diffuser, and a diffuser gives me the heat so we can set the hair into this texture, but it doesn't blow the hair around. A little tip that you could try if you haven't got a diffuser or a sock diffuser is actually put some tights over the end of your hairdryer, and that will diffuse the air to a certain extent. Once the hair's diffused, we're going to let the hair cool down to really set the texture in, and then we're going to start to take out your pins. But we want the texture to be, you know, a very uneven modern texture. It's a fresh texture, it's something we haven't seen before. If you're starting from scratch and you're putting these knots in the hair, to achieve the texture, after I'd sprayed in the setting lotion, heat the hair up, and as long as it's dry and the hair's hot, then you will achieve the right texture. If the hair's still wet, when you pull it out, what will happen is the texture will disappear straight away. So I'm just going to pull my hands through the texture, shake the texture out. If you wanted to get a tighter texture, then you could always put like a mousse in the hair, something that really sets the hair in, put it into wet hair, then twist the knots in, then dry it off, and then do, you know, exactly the same thing. I love this texture. So whatever you do, don't use a hairbrush for this look, just use your fingers. It's like a super, super modern texture that we've achieved with absolutely nothing but some knots, mousse or setting lotion, pinned in and diffused just to create this really cool texture.